not always the most talented people work. It's sometimes the people that are most discoverable.
Welcome back to the Drama Coach podcast. Today, I'm joined by Jamie Boddy, who is a performer, presenter, journalist, podcast host, and industry educator. Through his work on the business of show business, Jamie helps performers understand not just the craft, but the career, branding, self-promotion, networking, communication, and the wider realities of building a creative life. And I really wanted to have this conversation because for young performers, talent matters, of course it does, but it's not the only part of the picture. Today, we're talking about what young performers need to understand beyond talent and how they can start building confidence, clarity, and professionalism as they step into the industry. So welcome, Jamie. Thank you for being on today.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's very weird for me now to be on the other side. So I'm actually quite excited to not be the one interviewing.
Oh, good. And it's a little bit of pressure for me because I listen to your podcast. I really rate it. So it's exciting for me to perhaps learn from you as well here today. So you also started out as a performer and your career's grown into so much: presenting, journalism, podcasting, teaching, hosting. What was your original route into the industry?
I think it is maybe now when I look back on it in hindsight, maybe why my career has been how it is, and in a positive way, is that I've always kind of wanted to do a little bit of everything, and variety has always been something, especially as an adult in my career, that I've thrived on. Then if I look back at my early days of that, it started out, I originally was trying to convince my mum to let me go to any club possible. So I started off going to gymnastics, then it went to like ballroom and Latin, and then I went to like traditional dance classes. And that's the one that stuck. And I've always loved that. I was that probably annoying kid, like many people were, that was tap dancing around the house and all of that. So that was kind of my early doors in, started at the age of 7. And then I think I knew quite early on, I just loved media. I was always watching TV and film and reading. So I think I always knew I wanted to be in the creative sector. Was doing my AS levels, and one of my dance teachers at the time said, why don't you audition for dance college just so you know at the end of your A levels what it's like? So I did my AS levels and I got in and they were like, just go to the scholarship audition just to see what it's like for next year. And so I kept going and I got a scholarship, which I was so thankful for. So it actually meant I left after my AS levels to go to performing arts college. So that was my initial journey. I think I was somewhat focused. My AS levels were more in film, media, and photography, which obviously now slot into what I do. So I kind of had quite a somewhat streamline of wanting to be in the arts.
Lovely. Oh, this is really exciting. What would you say the skills from that training, the performing training, have helped you most in your wider career?
I think confidence, and I know whether you genuinely believe it or not, and there's this whole statement, isn't there, fake it till you make it, which I believe, but I think fake it till you make it and then educate yourself. Because obviously you can't pretend, thank you, you can't always pretend that you can do everything, and it's okay not to know everything. But I think that whole idea in the arts of having that confidence, I remember when I did an arts marketing internship, first of all, and I was just very confident to ask questions, being like, oh, I don't know this. Can I watch over someone's shoulder? Oh, can I come with you to that meeting? So I guess maybe that confidence from performing training. And I think one thing you maybe don't realize as a student, it's the fact that this turning up, dressing the part, picking up and retaining, it's those soft skills that will actually help your career. And that's helped me so much. Like, when I was training to be a journalist or in arts marketing, if someone told me something, I would retain it. And that's because you're used to learning a whole routine in a 1 hour session or a song. So I think, yeah, those soft skills are so transferable as a performer, whether you stay in the sector or you move out, but you maybe don't sometimes see the value in them.
Yes, I've chatted about that before. And that was my next question. And we've covered it really, is that I think because parents can worry about allowing their child to go into this very competitive industry. You know, are they going to make it? But actually, you're so right. All of the skills along the way, who knows where we're going to end up? Even if you feel like there's a really clear path as a performer, a creative, it might not. And those skills are so transferable and we can go different ways. And I think that's really refreshing to hear and hopefully helpful for those parents to say, let these children follow their dreams with care, with support, because actually I was talking to some students last week and they were talking about drama as a degree. Actually, there is so much there that is transferable into wherever you go and whatever you do, which I think is exciting.
And even like the fact of like the confidence to like pick up the phone or send an
Mm,
email, like people don't, not everyone has that. And it really surprised me when I first started working in social media for musicals. I've gone on to work on digital campaigns for leading West End shows. And I came from obviously being a performer, and the amount of people that were just scared to pick up a phone. And I was like, it's fine. I think that's the performer in you. It sounds so silly. Any parents listening, I've met former ballerina soloists who've gone on to be sommeliers. I've met tree surgeons. I've met marketing CEOs. I've met videographers. I've met fashion designers who all started out as dancers. So I just think those skills are so valuable, but sometimes we just put all of our worth on, oh, if I'm not on stage, I'm not of value. And that's not true at all.
yeah. Oh, I do think that's so refreshing and important to hear. And you may come back to stage or you may not, and that is okay. And yes, I'm enjoying hearing this. Thank you, Jamie. So your podcast, and that's where I found you, is called The Business of Show. I can't even speak. The Business of Show Business, which I love because performers are often trained in the craft, aren't they? We say train, 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 and there is so much to learn, but they're not always, or in my experience, not often educated at all on the career side of things. So what do you think young performers, or perhaps their parents, need to understand earlier on?
I think that's so true. As you said, we train so much on the craft, the hard skills, the singing, the dancing, the acting. And obviously, that's going to get you over the line. But it's all those other skills that are going to get you in those rooms and keep you in the rooms. And I think it's just, first of all, if they're a parent listening or a young performer, the fact you're even thinking about the other parts of the sector is a great thing. And understanding that you are a business and you won't be for everyone. But if you thought of it as like a product, a company, they've always retrained, they're changing their packaging, they're doing sales, they're doing online marketing in person, they're doing all these different things. And yes, you are not a shiny jacket or you're not physically a phone, but you do have skills and product and values. So it's understanding how to repackage yourself and identify who is buying the skills you have. So I think early doors, if you even start having that on a radar, that is a great thing. And I always say everyone will have a first job, but not everyone will have a second job, because quite often it's those additional skills. So if you're a parent, start thinking, right, what is my child's digital presence? How are they dressed and appearing? How are you as a parent? Because I know of situations when children have lost contracts due to
Me
parents.
too. Yes.
And obviously, love the parents. Thank you for taking your children to those classes, or the guardians, whoever it is. But you are also a reflection of your child's brand as well. So I think that's a big thing. So yeah, I think there's a lot that you need to start realizing. And again, not always the most talented people work. It's sometimes the people that are most discoverable. And that doesn't mean to say you have the biggest following. It just means to be, if someone is looking for a performer who is ABC, are you searchable first? Are you found about? Do people know of you first? So quite often it's the most discoverable person that works, as opposed to always the most talented.
That is a perfect segue to my next point that I wanted to discuss with you, which is this sort of branding, potentially social media. Again, obviously, we're careful with children and self-promotion. And then my next one, but I think it all comes in, is networking. I think a lot of being discoverable is sometimes who you, well, it's that old phrase, isn't it? It's not what you know, it's who you know. But I think who you know, and I'm not talking about just, hello, it's me to the top people, but connecting with those around you as well. Explain for us a little bit, perhaps, because I think these words can be uncomfortable to parents and maybe students. These words of brand and self-promotion, they can feel a bit uncomfortable. How do you explain sort of personal branding to performers?
Yes, and it's so funny because my first time I was doing these workshops, my first in-person workshop was actually in 2018, and my podcast launched in 2020 with a little bit of a hiatus. But back then, those words weren't thrown around as much, and now so many people throw them around that I think it either A, freaks people out, or B, it's thrown around so much it kind of dilutes it. So they're like, whatever. But I think the first thing is everybody already has a brand, whether you are intentionally curating it or not. Like, even if you drill down to the fact that we all know someone, like if I mentioned Lisa, they might be like, oh my God, I love Lisa. Like, yeah, oh, Lisa with the flowy blonde hair, or Lisa who has the podcast. Like, they're already parts of a brand. Also, we all know people that we might mention, and obviously no one says this about you, Lisa. They might be like, Lisa. Like, everyone already has a brand. So
but
it's kind
that's
of
also
more so
okay, isn't it? I was talking to a friend who also podcasts today, and I was talking about some voices that I did and didn't like. And I went, and I'm sure there are some people, I don't like Lisa's voice, and do you know what? That's okay. And so I'm not for you, and that's okay. But
Yeah.
I
And
suppose the weird thing comes when the content is, but I don't know if it mismatches. But yeah, sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
no, not at all. And I think that's a good point, because you can't be everything to everyone, because then therefore
No.
you'll be nothing. It dilutes your product and brand. So yeah, like people who always buy an iPhone aren't going to convert all of a sudden and just buy the new Google Pixel or Samsung. Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
market for everyone. And then knowing your brand, the sooner you can identify who is buying the skills you have, the more successful your career will be. So for me, your brand is a creative point of view that is made recognizable and repeatable. So I always say you need to be as copy and pasteable as possible. And I don't mean like the same wording all the time, but the in-person you and the online, they need to match. You're exactly the same person. So your brand is kind of the unique perception other people have of you. So it's a mixture of your reputation, your values, your skills, and your personality. Hopefully, then all intentionally shaped together through your actions. So your in-person experience, your online presence, your communication, and your expertise. So that's kind of what your brand is. And there's lots of amazing marketers out there that will say this, this, and this. But I think that the easiest one is, and again, I'm not the person to trademark this, but I do think it's the best way to say it, is what someone says about you when you leave the room. And you want to kind of get ahead of it. So that's kind of what your brand is. It's hopefully should be an authentic match. So therefore it's easy. It's the feeling you leave people with, as opposed to necessarily just like bulldozing into a room and being like, look at me. So that's kind of what your brand is, and why I think people need to understand it. It's not something that's tangible, like, oh, it's this one A4 document. Like it's such a combination of things. But once you start realizing, oh, it is my reputation. How am I showing up? Oh, like I smashed that audition, but if a casting director Googles me, I'm like on the third page of Google search. Or is it that they've got this amazing or promotional packet of a show reel, edited photos and all that, and then you turn up and you do not match that? Like, do you not look like your photo? Is it airbrushed within an inch of its life so you like it doesn't look like you? Is your show reel edited so you are flawless at this, and this, but in reality you don't match that, and that's okay. Like your USP, your unique selling point, is you. So that's probably kind of a mishmash of those initial
No,
points. But
that's
I
great.
just think understanding that brand is so much. If you looked at a business, you might think automatically, oh, it's the font, it's the logos, it's the colors. Some of that translates, obviously, like your headshot, how you dress, how you word an email. Yes, but a personal brand is so much more. That then kind of feeds into your other question about networking. Once you are sure of who you are and what your brand is and what your values and ethos are, it's a lot easier to network because you know who you are, you know who you want to network with, you know where your skills fit inside that job. Like I was never a strong singer, I was always predominantly a dancer. And once I started identifying the jobs where singing maybe was just an addition or wasn't needed, like my audition game changed. That's when I started booking, like I booked backing dancing on The Voice in Ireland, I booked Avengers Age of Ultron dancing shows because I was like, why am I going into these shows that I think I'm meant to do because the industry says you should? Like, I'm not a strong singer, so why am I going in for Mamma Mia when the first round is singing? Like, I hate that. And then therefore I'm in my head, like, where if
Yeah.
I go for a job when I have to be a dancer first and foremost, I can hold a tune, great. As opposed to, so I think once I started identifying who was hiring the skills I had,
Yeah,
I
that's
was like, oh my
great.
God, this is why my career really grew.
And I think that can shift for younger performers.
Mm,
I feel like now I really know myself and feel very comfortable being myself, but it takes time. And I think also for younger performers, it can develop. You know, singing might be their strongest skill, and then actually
mm,
their dancing overtakes it or whatever, because again, we are training all the time. So I
exactly.
think if you're young, younger than me, and listening, it's okay to develop and change. But I also think this comes to me now, which I didn't plan to talk to you about, but I coach a lot of actors, a lot of young actors. And I'm acting myself now, and so is my daughter in the industry. And I think it's really hard because I am very true to myself in terms of when I meet people and how I am as sort of myself and the drama teacher me. But I do want to play, you know, gritty, serious parts. I'm always going to be a nice mum, probably, but I want to have those. And I think that's hard because then I've got like a gritty headshot. I'm saying I here, but I'm hoping it's useful for the audience because they
Yeah.
might be an actor going, well, hang on, I'm an actor. I can play comedy, I can do drama. You know, what's your advice to them? Are they, if they're still figuring out who they are and feel like they have all these different sides to themselves, what do they do with that?
And I think what you said perfectly there is like, you don't know what you don't know. So therefore you might be thinking, oh, I'm only this, or I love singing, but I want to be better at dancing, but then you're scared to do it. So I think a lot of it is you have to try it first as well. So I think it's understanding that in an audition, you want to show what you're good at. You obviously you want to show who you are. There's so much that makes up for it. You're not going to go into audition thinking, oh, I've never sung a day in my life. Let me try this mezzo soprano opera. You wouldn't do that. But in class, you would. You would
Yes.
find a teacher and you would do that. So I think it's also understanding when to put what forward and package yourself.
Good.
And the industry has changed so much now with streamable content, vertical dramas, digital impact. Like there's so much has changed. So I think you almost have to be more multidisciplinary now, but not to the point where maybe it dilutes you too much. So and again, that's such a hard line to walk across, isn't it? Like, and like, because there's such a power sometimes in niching down. Like if you are specific enough, people like specifics. So then be specific to get in the room or get the job, and then you can showcase all what you have. Because there's no way in an audition in a 32 cut of a song that you can showcase everything you can do. So you go in with the specifics that you think that job needs. And then once you're in the room and they ask you questions or you're in the rehearsal room, that's when all the other parts of your shininess come out. And so I think it's anyone listening who's like, oh, I want to do this, want to do that. I think do it all, but be specific in regards to your time and your resources. Like you can't do everything at once. And especially as a parent or a young student, you think, oh, I need to sign up for this 6-week course with this person. I need to do this open class. And it all comes at a cost. So I think you need to think, don't glamorize it so much so that you're then in a stress about the finance of it. Yeah. So I think it's okay to try things for sure, but then maybe just come up with your own timeline for that and knowing when you want to maybe diversify your skills or not.
Brilliant. And I like what you said about per audition or per project. I like to encourage students to research research all the time. I love research, whatever they're doing. But, might be that particular casting director or project or director or style. Go and do a little bit of a dive and see what parts of you, I think, connect to that. And I'm thinking this for myself as well. And then, like you said, showcase the bit that you're good at that fits that particular project or part or character or genre or whatever. I think that's sorry to sort of summarize and put words in your mouth, but I'm thinking it as it comes to me that yes, that ties in. I think the advice that we both give, I think that ties it in hopefully for young performers.
Yeah, and I think if you were auditioning for a non-on-stage creative job or a job completely out of the sector, in your interview or your pitches, it's the deliverables. When I did this job, the company got this return on investment, or when I did this campaign, we sold this many tickets or whatnot. So trying to flip that through your performance lens, it's like, what can I bring to this audition that's going to help the show get to where it needs to be? So do your research. Oh, they're casting for this role. Great. Everyone they've hired in the last 2 casts are actually in my vocal range. Great. Do I know that person? Maybe I have to have a coffee with them. Oh, or if you're a new grad, it's looking at that show and thinking, oh, if I've looked in the program, typically everyone in that cast are from the same 5 agents. Not saying it's exclusively only those agents, but then thinking, right, obviously those agents have connections to that show. There's power in that research, isn't there? And obviously,
definitely.
And I love this quote from like studying improv and stuff. It's the whole idea of hold on tightly, let go lightly. This is such a good one, isn't it? So do that research so you're prepped. But then if you need to throw it out the window, you can, but you feel more grounded because you've done the prep and research.
Brilliant. Oh, that was magic. What would you advise then that, especially if we are trying to create this presence, be it online or networking in real life, is there anything that young performers should avoid posting or putting out there if they want to be taken seriously?
And I think the first thing to remember is that it's your social media at the end of the day. So you don't want to do anything that causes more friction and resistance. So I think social media is not going anywhere. However, your involvement with it can be at different levels. Quite often at a ground level, there's lots of auditions or opportunities posted online. So even if you're not someone who actively keeps posting lots to start with, you want a simple curated social media that unpacks who you are, just so you can go on then. If you see a casting director doing an audition, great, I can get those details. It's not like a burner account or you with a big hat on and your handle's like Bunny52 or whatever it is. So there's that kind of grassroots easy level. Then there's obviously the more proactive where you are actively using it personally and professionally. The biggest question I always get so just in a snapshot to the listeners, like in regards to arts marketing, working on marketing shows, quite often my job sometimes is either to A, media train creatives, or B, look for creatives that have social media that match the show or the product and they will potentially sometimes get opportunities like the Instagram takeovers, behind the scenes interviews, and it's not always on the most followers. It's who reflects that brand. So if we're doing a family friendly show, is it someone's social media that just looks jolly, looks happy, they're out, whether it's a post with them on holiday, but it's like a nice one, or them at work. It's not them like holding a glass of wine and smoking, which again, that is absolutely fine if that's your brand.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that. And there might be some people that say it has to be 50,000 followers, whatever, but it's the one who reflects the brand the most. Or working as a journalist now and presenter, it's again knowing who will be good on camera, who's been media trained, who will give the strongest answers. So that's why I think having a good digital presence can benefit your career. It can also introduce you to more people. So do's and don'ts, there's so much to say on this, but I just think, first of all, do what that resonates with you. First of all, don't do anything you think you're meant to do. It's okay to show non-performery stuff. Just make sure it's something that you think still aligns with your brand and values. I worked with an actress once who was a big advocate on animal rights, which is great. We shouldn't hurt animals, but she used to share all these videos of like dogs, street dogs and cats that were getting like butchered and awful. This
quite graphic.
Really,
yeah. Okay.
And I thought the problem is if a casting director goes on your social and they're seeing these videos, they're swiping off because it's very aggressive for them to look at. And I'm not by any means saying do not have your views, you allow them. But then we looked at, right, what about if you share articles you've read, shared fundraising pages that still align with that? And again, this is not me saying you should or shouldn't do this 100%, but that was a disconnect because her agent even said that to her as well. It was like some casting directors do not want to go on your social, but the problem is three swipes ago.
Yeah.
Exactly. But 3 swipes ago, you had this amazing video from your private show at like the Crazy Cox in London. So it's just working out what aligns with your values and what you feel comfortable posting. And as we always say in marketing, like go ugly first. And what I mean by that is like, you should be ashamed of you should be ashamed, but you should almost be embarrassed of your first product launch. Because if you're not, you launched it too late.
Yeah.
So I think on social, like just post the video. Like you can always like archive it or whatnot after. I just think just do.
Yeah, I've tried to get a little braver because I've talked to quite a few people on the podcast now who have similar views and are saying, and I have as well, the social media's not going anywhere, get out there. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll do a bit like this and a bit like that. And to be honest, I've quite enjoyed it, but it is a little scary. But then again, as performers, we should push ourselves a little bit. Like we said, we don't want to be super out of our comfort zone. But you're right. If you just try that little bit early, then you do tend to learn from it. And it does scare me a little when I'm like, okay, I'm here on TikTok putting on my makeup like the teenagers. But then
also like
it's friendly.
And it changes all the time. Like TikTok didn't exist 5 years ago, and now people are booking major shows and campaigns from it. So there's amazing things. There's also awful things about it, and it does dilute sometimes. I even had it recently, and I can speak about this candidly. Like a presenting job come up, looking for a TV and film expert. So as a journalist, I've written for The Stage, but also Digital Spy, Newsweek, Entertainment Daily. I've covered junkets, premieres, and then it came down to it, like they love you, they love you, but you don't have 50,000 followers.
I'm so surprised.
Okay, and it's just,
wow.
I presented at Manchester Arena, and I'm like, so I take that gut punch because sometimes you've got to sit in your emotions and feel it, and then I think, right, move on. So even for me, I'm somewhat active on social media, but I'm not right for everyone. So again, if you're listening to this, you can't be right for everyone. But I just think even if you're using it purely for research, you just want to have a nice social media presence then. So if someone does come across you, it backs up what they've seen in the audition room. It backs up the parent, it backs up the child when they've met them for the interview. It's one of those things.
I've got my teacher head on now, Jamie, and I want to say, this is what I tell my students all the time, and you know this. So that wasn't for you, and you weren't rejected. You were protected from something that ultimately wasn't for you. And when I had a little dive into your website and into your work, I was so blown away by how much you'd done and just thought, wow, this is such an exciting career. And if that opportunity wasn't meant for you. But I know you know this, but I want to chuck it out on the podcast because I always like to say that we forget to tell ourselves sometimes.
No, thank you. I do need to hear that sometimes. I think we also, when you get to a certain point in your career, and you'll notice as well as an adult as well, it's almost then that lens of, I'm established. This doesn't happen. Or I need to just water off a duck's back. But it's still exhausting and it's still, your skin gets thicker, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't still occupy some of your time and energy. It's like, no, thank you. I needed to hear that.
But it's also good, I think, for the audience to hear that. And what you said, well, I sat in it. I allowed myself Because there's the likes of me going, come on, rejection is protection. But I also do try to say to the parents especially, but don't brush it off. Don't wallow in it, but don't brush it off. It is really hard. And again, like you say, you can be established in your career and it still stings. But I think it's good for the younger performers to hear that honestly and candidly, that yes, it does. And it just makes it a little bit better, I think, to hear that. So thanks for sharing that.
No worries. And I think also, like, when you have an interview now in journalism and marketing, you're typically the only you only see yourself in your time slot going in and out of the interview. You don't necessarily even get the job. You might see the byline of the name. But as a performer, you're sometimes sat in a waiting room with like 10 other people in your casting bracket, or potentially as a dancer, you're in that room with 50, 60 other dancers, and you'll see the person that gets it because they're on the poster. Yeah. So it's still hard. But yeah, I think at any point in your career, but I think, as you said there as well, it's acknowledging it. That's what's going to help you build a stronger foundation, as opposed to just trying to always push it off. It's finding that sweet spot. And it must be so hard as a parent to navigate that as well, because it's your investment. You've got a stake in it, as has your child. So you're trying to be a support system, but you're also maybe happy or upset as well. Yeah. It's a whole other ecosystem. Yeah. So hats off to you parents.
Earlier podcasts, we talk a lot about that and how the children absorb that take on the emotions of the parent and different people's experiences towards one way and the other, and trying to balance that. So yeah, good luck parents listening, because it is hard, but yeah, you just try your best to get the balance. Let's talk a bit more about presenting, interviewing, and speaking as yourself. Yeah, you've worked as a presenter and a host, a moderator, I think, interviewer. We've seen you across red carpet events and panels. What makes, because this might be another string to the bows of the young performers, what makes a good interviewer or presenter?
Touching on your earlier point, research is a huge thing, especially if there are those slight Devil Wears Prada moments when, when they're like, who's that in the lookbook? Like at red carpets, quite often you do get a face sheet. So you have to research who's coming. If you're there as a journalist, you're thinking, right, what have they said in other interviews recently that maybe I can pull that up in my interview? So not only am I talking about this film, this TV show, what exclusive nugget do I want? Can I think of this? Can I think of that? So I think research is a big thing as an interviewer or presenter. Again, that whole idea of hold on tightly, let go lightly, prep, but be able to also throw it outside. And you'll notice as well, someone will say something that's so shiny and you're like, I've not thought about this, but I need to ask them about that because that is the shiny thing. So prep is key. Listening is important. And I think sometimes as a lot of performers get told, oh, you're great at talking, be a presenter. And that's true. But quite often as an interviewer, it's not about you. It's about the talent. So you're knowing that, yes, you might be a good talker, but you need to also know when not to talk. That's a really important key. And then I think the more I've got into this, understanding body language. If you've asked the question, does the talent look, have they, for instance, on a junket day or red carpet, they've been asked similar questions for hours.
Yeah.
So when they get to you, are they a bit beat up from the day? Oh, but you've just seen that they've shared this video on social and you can resonate with that. Let's just go in with that kind of off the cusp icebreaker. Let's look at their body language. Are they looking really engaged? Great. Are you asking a question that they're looking a bit more closed body language? There's all these things as well with interviewing. Again, it's not just about you, it's about them. And thinking of who the ideal audience is. So are you interviewing for your own channel? Are you interviewing for publication? Are you interviewing for a TV show? What does that audience want? It's not, oh, I want to know what happened backstage, but does the reader of the publication want to know that? So that can sometimes help you as a presenter as well, because you're like, I need to ask these questions because this person wants to know the answer to it. So yeah, I think listening, prep, body language are three things to start getting your head around if you are a up-and-coming presenter or want to get into it.
Do you know what? That's great acting skills as well. We always say the acting is reacting. You need to listen to your scene partner. You need to react to that body language. So actually, first of all, I was hearing all of that from you going, oh my goodness, what a tough job. So much going through your head, so much before, during, so much there. Gosh, how could anybody ever think about doing that? And then I thought, well, then they're not skills that you're just learning and practicing for that. They are skills as a performer that you are using. So that's brilliant. Listening to you then, I came full circle from going, God, sounds like no one can ever do that too. There are links, and I'm definitely learning to try and listen a bit more because I get excited.
And I think what you do, again, it's going back to your USP and what makes you unique. And what's great when you do your own podcast is you're creating obviously the show you want
Mm,
and you know people need. When you are sometimes going through the lens of someone else's brand, that's when obviously your questions need to be matched. But again, going back to as an actor, you're auditioning for a show which is someone else's vision. You are definitely contributing, you're adding value 100%, but it's someone else's product, it's someone else's baby. So you're having as a business, knowing that, right, what does this brand need? What does the audience want to see? And why, how do my skills fit in? Other skills, I guess, as an actor or performer that translates presenter, it's script writing, knowing maybe how to get you as an actor and you're in a scene, you want the energy reflected back. So again, if I'm interviewing someone, I need to give the energy that's needed for that product or the question. If it's a sad question or a more serious question, I'm not going to be like, hey, what do you think about it? Like you're knowing it's the same if you were in a
yeah,
scene. So I think there are lots of those other skills. Then there's completely other skills that you don't know, like in-ear. So having almost like a little
gosh.
in-ear and someone's giving you, they're feeding you lines or they're saying, oh, actually, this person, our next segments, we're 90 seconds out, you need to fill the time. Or there could be, if they've like, right, cut to camera too, so you're talking and you have to like cut away to your segment. So there's other skills as well. But going back to being a performer and being receptive, fake it till you make it, there's lots of skills that will translate to you being a presenter.
I'm intrigued by that, Jamie. When you had to first do that as a presenter, when that was a brand new skill for you, how did that feel?
Gosh, yeah, it's weird because, and I had this conversation with someone lately that how nerves and excitement are, they're such a similar feeling, aren't they? Which is why we should not be scared of being nervous because it's exciting. But yeah, I remember very clearly my first full in-ear experience was I got hired by this American company called Monster Jam. So it's all monster trucks and BMX bikes. And just to kind of give context maybe to parents and people and how this industry is, the person that hired me cast me many years ago in a Disney musical. They then moved over to Failed Entertainment. So that was Disney Live, Marvel Live, Disney on Ice, Ringling and Barnum Circus, Monster Jam. So that person knew me as an actor, performer, knew I was now presenting, saw my stuff online, and then hired me. So that just goes to show
Brilliant.
why networking is important. And my first in experience with that is at Manchester Arena. And I'm like, I could be talking to someone in the bleachers and they'll literally be like, okay, Jamie, you've got 20 seconds. I'm going to count you in. And then you're going to go to the halfway camera line and you're going to do the competition giveaway. And then I'm
This
just
is
like
stressing me
interviewing.
out just thinking about
Yeah.
it.
And you're just like, and then you have to be good at like, and then you're like, okay. But I think it's also like, I love the adrenaline. And what one thing I would say, and I apologize, I'm going on a tangent, but what I think I loved about when I retrained as a journalist, got my qualifications, whatnot, but everyone I met after that, they took me at face value. Oh, I'm a journalist presenter. They know me. When I was a dancer, people knew me as years as a dancer. So I felt I always had more to prove when it comes to auditions because not saying I was the best dancer in the world, but you know what I mean? People knew me by that point because I've been in it for like over 10
Yeah.
years. Well, when I reintroduced myself in this new industry, people were like, oh, okay, of course you are. So there was almost like an additional confidence, I think, as a career transition that more so than when I was like a performer that had done TV and film, but been in it for years.
Nice to hear.
So I think that kind of gave me a bit of confidence with it as well. And then my very first Vox Pops, so press night Vox Pops, was when I was interning at a marketing company for West End shows. It was 2014, 2015, I can't remember. So I was a marketing intern, still dancing along the side, so people didn't know I'd stopped dancing. And it was for Showboat, the musical in the West End, and the presenter hadn't turned up. And they were like, "Oh, can you do it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then the first person that got out the car was Sir Ian McKellen.
Wow.
And lots of people were like, "Oh, who would do this? We don't want to speak to him." And I was like, "I'll do it. Like, I'm
Do.
never going to work with him." Obviously, I would have loved to have got a Shakespearean play, but that was not going to happen. And I think it was just that confidence that came from being a performer that I was just like, okay. So
I'll
yeah, I
take
think
those opportunities as well. Like, I think I'd be scared, but you'd be mad not to. Surely you've got to take that.
and I think for anyone listening who's a young performer or parent, it's that it's trying to find the balance of the what if and being realistic. Because I guess we could always say what if to everything. Like, I'm going to email Spielberg right now because this could be the one email. Like, that is not going to be my what if story.
Yeah.
That is not going to happen in a positive light. However, there are those certain moments in that you're like, yes, this is it. This is it. Like, and what's the worst that could happen on that moment was he just said no comment.
Yeah.
But I've
And
still
you've
got
lost
loads of
nothing.
others.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
For sharing that story. I love that.
no worries. Sorry, I'm kind of around the houses there, but
No, don't apologize. I love it. And listeners to this podcast will know. I think some of our best stuff sometimes comes from the rabbit holes or the side quests, as it does in life. How can you stay calm then when you need to think quickly? There is so much going on there with the in-ear, the thinking, the questions, the prep. How do you help yourself stay calm?
I think, and again, this will be so personal to you, and I
Hmm.
sometimes to my detriment, I'm definitely an over preparer, over prepper. Sometimes to the point when that equally stresses me out, but
Yeah.
I also
Okay.
know to function with that because then when it comes to the event, I'm like, my background knowledge of this person or this event is quite solid.
Yeah.
So then in the actual moment, I can be more reactive and more on the ground. So I think preparation for me personally, I could probably prep slightly less, but for me, that pre-research is really essential just to familiarize myself with names, dates, what could be coming up. As a presenter and journalist as well, I think it's quite often building those relationships. So there's certain PRs that I know that I have a really good relationship with, that they like my line of questioning. I always take the time to talk to them as well. So there's like a nice rapport. So again, I think that calms the interview
Yeah.
situation. Even if you've only got 3 questions, it's more tempered as opposed to being like, oh my gosh, I've only got like 30 seconds now. What do I ask? I think I've tried to build that environment, to hopefully be more successful with that. And again, this comes with age. It's okay to not know, but when you're young, you don't know. And it's the whole world, isn't it, is on this one audition and it's scary. But having now sat on panels, it's those human moments that casting directors and producers and agents really like because they're seeing you. And having sat on panels for shows, it's in that little moment when someone shows who they are that we're like, yes, that's the person we want in this role, or that's the person that we know will be a really good dance captain because look at them work in the room as opposed to being just about themselves. So I think now I'd say knowing that it's okay to be human, but I understand as a
Yeah.
young performer that you you're still finding yourself. So
Yeah.
you're like, how can I be that? But I just think the more genuine you are, the more people want to work with you. We always say in marketing that people buy into brands that they know, like, and trust.
Yeah.
Do they know who you are? Can they trust that you could do 8 shows a week? Do they like you, want to work with you again? So I think, yeah, it's staying calm. It's going to be hard. And for some people, it might be more like another tip I could say, because I was never a good singer, or I was never, now I probably would come back. Having sat on panels and people would come in and sing, and in my opinion, not be as good as I was,
Okay.
but they were so confident. And I was like,
Mm.
yes, that's what they're buying into. And
Yeah.
again, I was not a strong singer at all, but I would go in apologizing from the beginning. And that took me out. And what I would sometimes do is I get to auditions early and I'm listening to someone who's amazing and I'm getting in my head.
Yeah.
So the more I learned to be like, you know what, my preparation is go there, register so I know I'm in the building, but then go to the changing room, go to the green room, stand up, take myself out of that
Yeah.
situation. So that gave me a bit more calmness with singing, as opposed to before getting there really early, listening to someone be amazing and this retreat into myself. As a dancer, my last name is Body, so I was always typically in the first group called to dance. So when I learnt the routine, I would always make sure that I moved around the room whilst learning it. Because then if they put me in a different place, I wasn't freaked out and thought, oh, I was only
That's
spotting that
good.
one fire exit sign.
Yeah.
So there's things like that that I think I learned over time to help me with my auditions.
That's all coming from you knowing yourself. And I hope people will listen and go, oh, yes, well, I'm a bit like that. So that's a good tip. Or actually, something I did in my last audition worked for me. So I'm going to remember that and take that and use it. And I also love that I think you said something like human experience in the audition room. And I do like to say to my students, there's no such thing as a mistake. If something, my acting students, if something goes wrong, if that table falls over and you stay in character and you deal with it in character, it's probably a gift, not a mistake, because I do get them going, oh, well, when they used to call me Miss, not now, oh, Lisa, this has gone wrong. I messed up. I was like, no, you didn't. That was did you stay in character? Did you react accordingly? Yes. Beautiful. Brilliant. And this can happen in competitions, auditions. So I think you're tapping into that as well. As long as, I think you're also talking about being yourself, but as long as you're being yourself, even if that is the character, all of that, like, you can't go wrong, kids. Just go and do it and
Yeah.
know yourself and learn from the experience, I think.
And you're also auditioning for future auditions. The amount of jobs I've got, not from that audition, but from someone I've met in the waiting room that's like, oh, have you heard about this? Let's go. Or someone's called me back in a couple of weeks or a couple of months later to be like, you weren't right for that product or that project, sorry, but I love what you brought. You're right for this. Like that kind of feeds into that whole networking thing as well, doesn't it? It's like And I think the whole idea of the more people you know, the more jobs you'll get. And that's not because you're like the most known singer in the whole world, but the more people who know who you are and that they like you and that you've got the good
Yeah.
skills, they'll hire you because every job comes from a conversation. So it's you and your agent and the producer, you and that casting director, you and a friend. So that's why I think networking shouldn't be looked at as this addition. Oh, we must do 12 hours of networking this week.
You
Like
can network
you're
in an
networking.
audition, can't you? Yeah.
Yeah, literally. The industry has changed so much now, and sadly, there's not as many open auditions. But I remember meeting a fellow dancer who was 6 foot with dark hair, and we'd end up doing so many jobs together because they would always, oh, we need two that look the same or the same height. And that was just from an audition. And like going back to my earlier point about my presenting job on Monster Jam and that Disney casting. Sorry about this long-winded story, but I'll keep it short. I did a cruise ship audition. I did a cruise ship, sorry, for Royal Caribbean, loved it. One of my best friends from that got married. I flew to her wedding in New York. I became really good friends with one of their friends who I went to visit in Chicago to take class. We then went on a night out with some friends, well, his friends, met someone who told me about an audition for Disney. So I was in Chicago in America. I went to the audition, did not speak the entire day because I was like British. And I was like, they're not going to hire me because I'm English. We're auditioning in America. So
It's
I was,
your unique thing, right?
so I was always like, And then there was three of us left at the end. And then they're like, tell me more. And I was like, surprise. But they were looking for a replacement on a European tour. And back then, there was no Brexit. You didn't need a visa.
No.
So although the three of us had similar skill set, I immediately got that job because I could fly to Europe like 2 weeks later and do the tour. So again, that was all this connection. And that wasn't networking like, here's my business card. It was just chatting to people about what I love.
This episode is supported by Scene Tribe, a new industry network for creatives built around your credits, your collaborations, and the work that you've actually done. If you're ready to be found by the right people, head to scenetribe.com. Right, back to the episode. Oh, I love these stories, and it just backs up what I keep telling people is be a good person. You know, I've never believed, and people have probably heard me say this on the podcast before, but the whole reason I didn't go into the industry when I was younger is because it was painted to me as a claw your way to the top, hit everybody else down. I thought, I hate that. I can't deal with that. I'm going to go and teach. I'm going to pick people up. And that was my path, and I've absolutely loved it. But in the last 3 years, somehow everyone I've met so far has been a genuine person that I've enjoyed connecting with, that we found work from or helped each other out in some way. And it is completely the opposite to what I was hearing kind of, 25 years ago. And I know that's not true everywhere. I know there are toxic environments, but what I'm really hoping with this podcast and with the guests is that we are helping these young people to find those good environments, the safe ones, and find those people and those connections. I really, really hope so. I'm loving what you've said there.
I think, as you said there, like it's that support system, isn't it?
Yeah.
Finding those lovely people. And then sometimes the biggest jobs on your CV have not been the most enjoyable. And then, then going forward, do you want to do that? Do you want to work with that person again? Yay or nay? If you do, you're doing it because it benefits you one way or another, the credit or the money, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But you can also say no to jobs. Like, I do not want to work with that person. And that's why we always joke, but one of the most enjoyable jobs will probably always be like panto. It's just silliness. It's hard work. And that might not be your biggest credit. For some people, they're amazing and they thrive in it and they earn so much money from it and build amazing careers in it. And that's okay as well. But sometimes you have the best time when you're in second or third year at college and you're being fortunate enough to secure panto and you think, this is easy. Not easy because it's hard work. But you know what I mean? Like it's light,
fun.
it's fluffy. Yeah, it's fun. The content matters, joyful. And then you'll do a massive TV job and hopefully you love it. But you might also think, oh my gosh, those working conditions are really intense, or I've done this epic tour and I didn't like that producer. Like you just never know. So I think it's just the more you surround yourself with those positive people, as you pointed out, like the better or more fulfilled you will be.
Yeah, and it sounds really fluffy, but I do truly believe it. And I think and I hope that it does make a difference. And yeah, of course, I'm not completely naive. We are going to come across people that we don't gel with, or that we decide, and how empowering to turn work down. But at the moment, it might be the parents and the students working this out together, and listening to those red flags, for an overused phrase, and feeling that vibe, which is hard, especially if you as a parent are also brand new to the industry. It's a really tricky thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
To know what to accept and what to reject. That's where your agent obviously helps you out, but you might not have one yet. So is there anything you can advise there for how parents and students could spot where they shouldn't be going? Or is it just a case of trust their gut? I don't know.
I think one thing I will say, and all of my performer friends, well, the majority of them will say this later in their life, and it's so hard because I know as a parent, a guardian, a teacher, you want the best for them. But it's first of all, it's that statement of, oh, what are you up to? Or how did that audition go? Like it's trying to approach that support in a way that still allows you to be the parent or the guardian or the teacher, but maybe trying to look at the lens of how does this child feel? And it's again easier said than done. But the majority of people I know all have always had that one person be like, "So did you get it? Or why aren't you in EastEnders?" And it's not coming from a place of malice,
No.
but it's not that easy. So I think that's one thing I would just say anyway. It's hard because nowadays there are so many agents, there's so many opportunities popping up, and therefore that gives a lot more scope for scams and
Yeah.
unsafe environment and like almost pyramid schemes of you have to sign up for this to do this, and then I'll get you this. And like it's
Don't pay for that. Don't, yeah.
no, it
Yeah.
shouldn't. Like, there's a level of pay to play in the fact of, oh, I'm going to go to university. I will pay
Yeah.
for this course. Or there is a workshop from this notable choreographer that I really want to work for. So therefore, I'm going to pay to go to that. So yes, there's that element of pay to play, but there should never be pay to play for, oh, I need to pay to see these auditions. I need to pay to join your
No.
books. I need to pay to get additional one-on-ones with you as an agent or a manager. So I think those are big red flags. I think also it's okay as an adult not to know. So as a parent listening or a guardian or a sibling, whoever is leading that ship, ask. Do not think, "Oh, therefore I'm the adult in this situation. I'm just going to do a hard line or they've promised me this." Like, it's okay to ask. There's people out there that have been through it. There's unions out there. You may not know much about equity or whatever union applies to you, but there are those resources out there. Like go, I think maybe have that transparency with your child or your student and be like, let's go on this journey together. Let me ask these questions to the agent. But also I'm just trying to speak without identifying anyone, but I know people who are agents to children, choreographers in shows that have children in the West End and stuff, and just knowing how sometimes those friction points come from not the child, they come from that external person, whether it is a parent or an agent. So it's being like maybe saying to your like, if you get a self-tape request through, that is the beat and the cadence of the industry, that sometimes that will be of an inconvenient time. However, is there a conversation with your agent to be like, my child is still at school today? Is there a potential extension? So I think it's maybe that compromise will be really important. And it's, I think, trying to enjoy, and you know what, I've kind of gone off a little bit of this whole idea of like, let's enjoy our journey because like, yes, but also like journeys are hard and they are like traumatic and there's turmoil. So it's like, I don't want to say enjoy the journey, but I think no one necessarily starts out in the arts to be like, I'm going to be a millionaire. Like no, we do it because we love
Sadly.
it. We are tapping into something maybe that we don't get to do day in and day out. So I think if it's not enjoyable or if the bad times outshine the enjoyable times, that's when there's something to look at again. But I just think, how do we get the fun and play in this? I also know some parents that have taken their child to audition and the parents also been booked. So I also think like
that's cool.
I know it's quite rare, but I think sometimes like that, I just think enjoy the journey as well as a parent or a guardian, which is way easier said than done. But I think, uber red flags will be the ones that just ask for lots of money or knowing that, oh, we want you to work this many hours when you're like, that's not legal, or do this in your self-tape. I think also having worked at dance competitions and been on audition panels, like age appropriateness when it comes to audition material, dance comp material, costumes is so important. Like, please think, what is the age of my child? What shows are they going into? That's the only content they need. Don't think, let's put this really edgy song in just because, but that's not in their casting bracket unless the show is very specifically about that. So I just think bear that in mind when it comes to their material as well.
That's a good one. I've seen people, dance teachers, talking about this online as well. Yeah, I think it's probably a whole nother episode that we could go into on that. So thank you for that. What should parents know about the online professionalism and representation? So we sort of talked about it through a sort of an age appropriate social media using actor before, but if it's the parent deciding to run that, what do they need to know about?
Also think that landscape is potentially going to change over the next year or two if they bring in a tighter ban on 16 and under social
Talking about
media.
this yesterday.
So I think what also might be the case now might not be the case if you're listening to this in 2027, 2028, it may have changed.
Yeah.
So I think that's just good to know.
And this
And
is
then
at time
also,
of recording as well. This will go out 6 weeks from now. So yes, things might have even
exactly.
changed in the coming
Yes.
days. Yeah, thanks for pointing that
And
out.
I think also, first of all, you do not own your social media at the end of the day. If someone decides to close the platform, you lose all that
Yeah.
content. So I think social media is a fantastic resource for everyone in the arts. However, if that is your only source of getting work or your only portfolio asset, beware that there may be glitches at times when you post. The algorithms will change. The platform may go down. A new platform may come up. So I think it's also understanding that social media is not the only asset or resource a performer should have. I think as a parent, I think parent-run accounts are great if the child is under a certain age, but understanding what tone of voice is coming across when you are posting. Because I've also therefore then seen parents run children's accounts, but then almost have that be as a segue as like their fandom when they're talking, trying to connect with other actors. So then that's a disconnect to what that child is offering. Are you having it more as like your shop front for your child? So it's this commercial they've done, it's this and that, but you almost have slightly of an arm's distance. So it is there as a lookbook, but they're not on it all the time. So I think if you are managing it as a parent, what is the tone of voice? What are the brand guidelines you are creating for your child's presence? Because the thing is, you are potentially curating your child's brand as an 8-year-old. Fast forward to their 28, what digital footprint do they have?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you should tread on eggshells, but just kind of start factoring that in. Like, what is the purpose of this social media for this child? I've worked on West End shows that have, on the digital side, marketing that have children in, and people are mean still about kids online. You'll be surprised sometimes what they say. So understanding that you're also opening yourself to hopefully amazing praise, but also maybe some negative people as
Yeah.
well. But I do think, as I've said before, social media is a big asset to the creative industry. So if your child is actively working and auditioning, it can be a great asset as well. I just think sit down with them maybe and say, like, look, what do you want from your career? Like, what do you want from social media? Like, likes don't always pay the bills. So that vanity metrics of this many followers, how does that impact their personal wealth and health and development? Like, how are they viewing themselves? I think regular check-ins with them would be really good. Maybe sit down with them and say, like, what content do you want to put out this week? What accounts would you like to follow? Maybe if you run it, but then say to your child, right, you can have 20 minutes on your dance account, but I'm going to be in the room as well, if you don't mind, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
If they end up doing any lives or anything, make them make that disclaimer at the front to be, or go on as a parent first of all and be like, hi, this is little Sally. She's going to jump on to talk about her experience in this film. I'm going to be in earshot, or get the child to say that and you be in the room. I think there are ways to mitigate that. And then also if the child does have an agent or a manager, have that conversation saying, what do they need from a digital point of view, from your point of view? So many points of view there.
No,
What do they need
is
as a
great.
digital? Yeah, so that's kind of a few things I would have, but be aware that social media, to be rewarded by the platforms, you do have to regularly use them. So there's no point saying, I'm going to create this account for my child, and then you post once every 6 months, because they are not going to feed into the algorithms and therefore the bigger search systems of performers. So if you're going to do it with a plan.
Yeah, well, that's brilliant. And I had never thought about the lives. Hadn't thought about
Mm.
that at all. What if your child asks to go live? So I think that's really good to be like, I am here, and I would never let a child hop on and do that on their own. But I remember when mine were younger and I was doing the drama coach YouTube videos, and it was lockdown, and then little Lacey, so she was about 5 or something, she was then borrowing my phone and creating her own. Obviously, it wasn't live or anything, but it was really quite cute. I was like, oh, you're just mimicking what we've just been doing. But now with the ability to click a button and that be live, be really, really careful with that. That would have been scary.
Everyone has that digital presence. Like, so what you post now, like, context is everything. And I always say this to actors, because in my master classes, I will have like a series of slides that are like the negative side and people that have lost work and big like law cases. And I think it's like, if you've signed an NDA, you obviously can't post that self-tape online, but people still do it. And it's like, no, do not do that. You could be sued. But it's understanding that legacy, that digital footprint, and what will be found. Like, if you can Google a casting director, they can Google you. So like, what is potentially coming up? Yes, that's my high horse, and I'll get off.
No, I like the high horse. Thank you. Before I go into a little quick fire with you, Jamie, is there anything that you wish had come up in this discussion that hasn't come up that you'd like to share?
No, I don't think so. I think you've approached everything, and I think we've touched on it quite a lot. Where sometimes the best things in this industry or opportunities come from those gaps, those spaces in between the on stage time. So I think there's people, anyone listening, just make sure that you value your skills on and off stage, you value your time, and when you start viewing yourself as a business, you start realizing how many unbillable hours there are. And
Mm.
if you ask someone in another job to go, oh, can you do 2 days free, please? They would say no.
No.
So if you are updating your marketing material, yes, that is your business, but it's also unbillable hours. So how can you put in parameters? If you're using social media for the industry side, how can you set in some form of working hours? Just because someone emails you at 11 p.m. does not necessarily mean you need to email back at 11 p.m. Obviously, it's different if you're on set the next day, you want to check that email. But if it's just a general one, do not necessarily think, oh my gosh, I need to now record this 8-page self-tape by midnight. Like, it's just understanding that as a business, your product is your body and your voice and your health quite often. So if you are not at your optimum, you're not going to work. So it's just understanding that.
It's been fabulous advice. Thank you so much. And it does resonate so much with things that I am telling students, but don't always tell them in the right way. So you've tied it all together there so nicely. Thank you.
No worries. And like, I think what you're doing is fantastic. So thank you for having me on. And it's again, with age, like I've been on panels now and it's those soft skills. I can give so many examples and I won't, because I will not take up all your time. But like, there's been people that have auditioned amazingly, but then we've asked them about themselves and they've not spoken and they've been really meek. And we think we can't trust to put them on an 8-month tour right now because they're not there. So we're like, go away and have your life experience. There's times when someone maybe hasn't bashed out the routine 100%, but have they been eager? Have they been listening? Have they been an absolute delight in the break room and they've brought everyone's energy up? Oh, I know that they've been in this show, my friend, let me phone them. Or they sing their high heavens. It's so much of this industry. I think quite often we listen to the people that are successful and we're like, oh yeah. But even their journey was probably hard for them, but now you think it's easy, or their journey that did not exist. What existed 10 years ago does not exist now. Like, this change. So I think it's just maybe going back to your last point about social media as well, just be careful what you consume as well, both for you and your child. I remember we spoke about this off air, but there are so many amazing resources out there right now. And there's also a lot of resources that could do probably more damage than good. So I think be careful with what you consume and it's that whole idea, isn't it? It's like what you're fueling your body with, both physically with food, but also like your mind.
Yes.
And what you're fueling yourself with content-wise can also dictate how your career goes.
It's okay to question it, isn't it? So if you're liking listening to this and you feel it fuels yourself, great, have more of it. But if it doesn't resonate with you, switch it off or question it. Oh, I noticed you brought this up. I'm not sure how that's it, because we're all individuals and what works for somebody might not work for someone else. And, I think you're so right there about fueling yourself and what you consume. If it's not working for you, there's so much contradictory advice out there as well. It is hard to know what to trust. And I think that all comes back to trusting your gut. What is resonating for you and your child? If it feels right, follow it. And if it doesn't, at the very least, question it. And if not, ignore it, I think. Oh, thanks. Let's do a little quick fire. I love to shake it off at the end. So this may have already come up, in which case, great. Just give me your shortened version, or it might not have done, just whatever comes off the top of your head, really, Jamie. I've got 4 questions for you. Number 1, one thing that you wish every performer understood about building a creative career.
It's not just your talent that will help you build a long, sustainable career. It might get you one job, but it won't necessarily build a long, positive career.
Yes. One practical step that they could take this week.
Know how to write or say how good you are. As a singer, dancer, actor, we show how good we are, but most of the time you're emailing, you're putting captions on posts, you're talking in those events. So get good at knowing who you are so you can articulate it or write it concisely and not just have to wait to hopefully get in the room to show how good you are.
Yes, I love that. One industry myth that you would love to bust.
Oh my gosh, one industry myth. God, there's probably so many. I think this might be controversial.
Okay.
You do not have to be a triple threat to work successfully in the creative worlds. I think that's quite a big push, but sometimes you could be great at 2 disciplines. You could be great at 7 disciplines. You could be great at 1, but be so logical you're an amazing dance captain. Like whatever it is, like you do not necessarily have to be equal measures at all 3. If you are, yes, love that for you. I'm jealous. But if you're not, do not worry.
Yes, brilliant. And one habit that helps performers come across professionally.
Listening is a good habit to build. It sounds so silly, but we often, I think, in the arts, because we are trying to prove ourselves and we're so eager and almost there's a mild level of desperation sometimes. I think we listen to speak, or we listen and we do it. We're actually like, take a beat. What was that correction? Why are they saying that? Well, they've just mentioned this point. I'm not going into the hard sell right now. That's really nice. Or they've mentioned that they just got married. Why am I going straight in with give me a job? Let me quickly talk about that. Like whatever it is, like I think listening to actually process is a good habit to start building. And then it will also therefore allow you to come across more professional, because you can take a beat and think, right, they've just said this. I can now pull on this, this, and this to answer that. Yes, and listening, I'd say.
That's brilliant. I'm really going to try and take that on board, because I can be very eager to please and jump in. So I'm definitely going to take that on board this week. Thank you very much, Jamie. Could you let our audience know where they can find you and your work? Because I'm sure they'd be keen to hear more if they haven't come across you before.
Yeah, perfect. So I have the Business or Show Business podcast. So that is on any platform where you listen to your podcast. Season 1 to 4 were audio only and ran 2020 to 2022. And then I brought it back last year with video. So you now have that on YouTube as well. And then my personal accounts, I'm just at Body Jamie. So my last name is Body. So I'm at Body Jamie everywhere for that, or the Business or Show Business.
Thank you very much. I'll pop all of that in the show notes so it's nice and easy to find. I love that you started as a dancer and your surname is Body. It was just meant to be. That's so memorable. Yeah. You know, we're talking about the business. You kind of can't forget that name. What was that, your birth name, or did you choose to change anything for your performer's name?
It was my birth name, and
amazing.
It became quite a talking point, as you said, because quite often people think it can't be Body, it must be Bodie. And then so I would always make a joke of it if they said Jamie Bodie, and I'm like, oh, it's actually Body, or it's Body, but you can call me what you want when you hire me. I would make a joke of it. Was something I had, and it's all like, I think people often refer to me as, I'm always full named by most people. Jamie Body, never just Jamie, but I like it, so I sit in that now.
Yeah, I love that, and it floats. And actually, when I was putting together the intro and the outro, I wrote your full name for the bit I'm about to do now, and I was like, oh, that's a bit formal, I'll take that out. But yes, it trips off the tongue, and I can't believe we talked about that at the end of the episode rather than the beginning. Yes, I think if performers can be even confident in your own name. I was thinking that just the other day. I was like, oh, mine's such a mouthful. Yeah, whatever your name is, go and get confident with it. Say it, feel it, own it. I'm going to take that on board for myself.
Yeah. No, but it's great. But I think going back to the whole idea of brand, your personality, your ethnicity, your regionality, this is all part of it. And it's maybe that you must be RP. Yes, you need to be able to do RP. But it's just as charming that you've got a Welsh accent, or you're from Yorkshire, or you are from Essex, and that kind of feeds into potentially what your brand and your casting type is. It's all okay. And I think, as you said, it's almost what's been lovely for me as well in this chat is just how you're championing is love yourself and who you are. And I think that's just so true. And just knowing as an actor that you are malleable. Yes, you can be this, this, and this. But you're not all of that all the time. So it's what's the linchpin holding that together, really?
That's beautiful. I'm going to wrap this up and go into my outro then, Jamie. A huge thank you to you for joining me and for sharing so much practical advice about building a creative career, not just as a performer, but as a professional. I think this is such an important conversation for young performers, because talent is wonderful, but the way you communicate, prepare, present yourself, build relationships, and keep learning really matters too. So if you're listening as a young performer or the parent or carer of one, I hope this episode has helped you think about the industry in a slightly wider way, not as something scary or impossible, but as something you can start to understand one step at a time. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please do share it with someone who might find it useful. A young performer, a parent, or anyone trying to understand the industry a little more clearly. You can also come and find me on socials at The Drama Coach for more support, resources, and practical tips for young performers and the people supporting them. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.